Greetings, I'm Zachary Hepner. I'm pleased to share this Devar Torah with you for Parashat Re'eh. The entire Parashat Re'eh is all laws, except for the first 7 verses that are a prelude. In fact, the first 7 verses in Re'eh form an inclusion with the blessings and curses in Parashat Ki Tavo in Devarim 28. People often think of Mount Gerizim and Eival with Parashat Ki Tavo. However, it's actually introduced right over here in Re'eh in chapter 11. The first 3 verses introduce the notion that there are blessings and curses that are your choice to choose from. The next 4 verses command the Israelites to place the blessings on Mount Gerizim and the curses on Mount Eival. Now listen carefully to the next verse, because it's not repeated in the closing of this inclusion in Deuteronomy 28. It gives the exact coordinates to where this ritual will take place. Chapter 11, verse 30. Halohema be'ever hayarden acharei derech mavo hashemesh be'eretz ha-Canaani hayoshev ba'Aravah mul ha-Gilgal etzel Elonei Moreh. They, the mountains, are on the Transjordan to the west, a day's walk westward, in the land of the Canaanites, who live in the Aravah, opposite Gilgal, next to Elonei Moreh. This is remarkably specific. Our tradition tells us that this is in the location of Shechem, but the Torah does not say so. It gives other markers. Why? And what about these markers that make it so significant? The verse begins with, on the other side of the Jordan. Who was the first person in the Torah to cross the Jordan westward? The answer is Avraham, or Abram. Let's make a close reading of the very first moments Avraham crossed the Jordan from Haran at the age of 75. This is Genesis chapter 12, verse 1. God commands Abram to go to the land that he will show him. Verse 2, V'hayeh bracha, you, Abraham, will be a blessing. This echoes the blessings. Verse 3, V'avaracha mevarachecha umekalelcha aor. Those that bless you will be blessed. Those that curse you will be cursed. This echoes the curses. Verse 4, Avram left Haran to the land of Canaan with his nephew Lot. Verse 5 enumerates the other people who left with Avram. The question that we'll ask is, why is Lot, the family member, singled out in verse 5? The answer is as simple as the question. Lot is a name, but it also is a name with a meaning. It means cursed. Lot is the cursed one in this story. I'm not sure why he's cursed, but that's a given, that he is cursed. Perhaps because he does not inherit the Holy Land. Perhaps because he marries Canaanite women, or because of his sexual liaison with his daughters later on. Either way, we now have the paralleling. Abraham is the blessing, or the blessed one, and Lot is the cursed one. Verse 5 enumerates all the other family members and makes it clear that they are entering Canaanite territory. Listen carefully to verse 6. Vaya'avor Avram ba'aretz. Ad makom Shechem, ad Elonei Moreh, v'ha-Canaani az ba'aretz. Abraham passed through the land as far as the site of Shechem, to the Elonei Moreh. The Canaanites were then in the land. Avram crossed the land, just as it says in Deuteronomy, Mavo Hashemesh, a westward journey, to Elonei Moreh, echoing Etzel, Elonei Moreh. And now this Devar Torah could also be named, why does verse 6 say redundantly that the Canaanites were there in the land? And the answer becomes a simple one, because it echoes Deuteronomy 11, which says, V'ha-Canaani hayoshev ba'Aravah, in the land of the Canaanites who dwell in the Aravah. They were there in the time of Avram, and they were still there in the time of Deuteronomy 11. Parenthetically, both Rashi and Ramban, and I'm sure others, pick up on the notion that there is a resonance between Genesis 12, verse 6, and Deuteronomy 11, verse 30. In fact, It's a curiosity that nowhere in Deuteronomy does it mention the location of Har Gerizim and Har Eival as Shechem, except that it's linked to Genesis 11. What does Abraham do? In the next verse, he has a revelation and then builds an altar and then begins to walk towards the Negev. I would like to suggest that the ritual that the Israelites were performing was, in fact, the same experience Abraham had performed 465 years earlier. Both entered the land, crossing the Jordan. Both took blessings and curses with them. The Israelites had a physical blessing and curses, and Abraham was the blessing, while Lot personified the curse. Both went to Elonei Moreh. Both were there in the time of the Canaanites, explicitly. Parenthetically, the only nation that is explicitly cursed are the Canaanites. Both went westward. This reenactment is significant because it's Ma'aseh Avot Siman Lebanim. What happens to the fathers is a sign for the children. The blessings are if you follow the statutes given in Deuteronomy 11 through Deuteronomy 28, then you are blessed. The curses are if you don't follow them and instead follow foreign gods whom you have not experienced. How incredibly profound. We can infer from this that we don't know much about Abraham explicitly before chapter 11, but that he had a relationship with God and was intent on promoting God and diminishing the notion of foreign gods, whom he was too not familiar with. What a profound message. The Israelites will enter the land after slavery and 40 years in the wilderness. Don't forget your roots. This started much earlier than Egypt. This started 465 years earlier, to be exact. And that should add extra significance to this ritual and to what you are about to embark on. Wishing you all a Shabbat Shalom.